Jeff, did you
Ian,
watch wrestling this week?
I did watch wrestling this week and beyond.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You traveled into the future?
I traveled in time.
Oh, that's awesome. I know you've been trying to do that for a while now.
It's a thing, you know?
Yeah, well,
No,
great.
I actually, as a little aside to kick things off, I did travel back in time in the wrestling world a little bit this week, and that I started a book about the death of WCW. So
Oh, are you reading Death of
I was going back.
WCW?
Yes,
Right
yes, I
on.
am. Quite enjoying it too. But anyways, yeah, no, I watched wrestling this week, and I'm glad that I did. Very glad that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought what happened at AEW Revolution, that whole show was great.
Yeah, let's just
But
run it from off the top.
you want to do that? Sure.
Like we had discussed the possibility of maybe doing a special like best and worst of
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
AEW
right.
Revolution, and then I got like 2/3 of the way through it, and I was like, Ian, I have nothing bad to say about this. Like, there will be no worsts. I don't know if we should do this. So,
I,
like, this is
I I can't think
amazing.
of I can't think of a match that I came out of it going like, ah, I didn't enjoy that much.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed everything. I enjoyed the whole show, but the whole show had such a great atmosphere
Mhm.
because there were 16,000 packed fans in there that knew this night was special, that were super excited to be
Mhm.
there, and that came across. And I think the performers felt that, and I,
Mhm.
I think it came across on the pay-per-view as well. And that's why it's gonna go
Mhm.
a very memorable night. You will always remember Sting's retirement. It was that good.
Yeah, for sure. And the rest of the card stepped up to that too.
Yeah.
And there wasn't, like you say, there wasn't a bad match on the card. The show moved well, everything was paced well, like even the thrown together all-star scramble that totally wasn't Meat Madness
Yeah.
match was was
Yeah.
was a lot of fun, and it really, I think tonight we're going to look back at this year's Revolution. Wembley was great, and they've had
Mhm.
lots of successes. We're going to look back at this year's Revolution as the time when AEW really came into itself. You know what I mean? Like, it finally started to fit the shoes that it had bought for itself. And this is a new era for AEW
Mhm.
now that Revolution is over. They're going to have a new set on Dynamite. They've got a new logo that I'm told is different from the old logo, but um
A little
this
different.
kind of
It's very
thing. They
90s.
got very, yeah. But they got Will Ospreay in the company now, so that's someone
Yeah.
you can build a whole company around. We've still got the MJFs of the world waiting in the wings, the Britt Bakers, the Adam Coles, if he can stop,
Mhm.
breaking. And it really, I think that based on what happens in the next few months, AEW may actually surpass, like, skip over the WCW phase where they ended up shooting themselves in the foot and going out of business. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think that they will be able to jump over that to a point where we've never really seen before in terms of a competition for WWE. And WWE is under new management. It's got a whole new attitude or whatever. Like, I really think AEW stepped really high up with this show, and like, we're about to enter into another just fantastic wrestling period where both shows are doing the best they can.
Yeah, I don't think TNA or WCW or any other number two company
Hmm.
has ever had a show as universally praised, right?
Yeah.
TNA was never putting 16,000 people in an arena and having a beloved show. That
Mhm.
never happened. I mean, WCW did some very, very cool things, but there's a lot of WCW you look back on, I was like, oh God, that was,
Yeah.
awful.
Oh,
Like
jeez.
the good the good things that happened in WCW seem like they almost happened like
In
in
spite
spite
of,
of,
yeah.
like, you know, they couldn't screw up Ric Flair just coming out and doing an awesome promo, right? Because
Yeah.
he's Ric Flair and he's awesome. So there was a bunch of that in there. But with this, because of how Sting's career uh was handled in AEW for
Hmm.
3 years, the way he was kept as a legend, that's something that like everybody in wrestling seems to appreciate. And it
Hmm.
it looks good on AEW. It reminds them like, hey, I know that maybe our attendance was down sometimes, but
Yep.
we're not LOL TNA. TNA could never do what we did.
Yeah.
With Revolution. TNA could never get to that. WCW would never do something as completely like polished
Mm-hmm.
and like Sting's entire 3-year run was like without error. They did it perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody agrees it was awesome, and you will and
Mm-hmm.
AEW is to thank for that. So I think this was a very pivotal moment for the company. They probably won over a lot of new fans. Like I'm sure there were a
I
lot of
think they
fans who
won
like
back a lot of fans, is what they did.
I think they won back a lot of fans, but I think they also won over some older school fans who were like, I didn't want to see Darby going through a pane of glass, but I respect how they handled Sting.
but
And
but
yeah.
those fans aren't the ones that I think they won back. I think they won back the guys that people who knew Sting
Mm-hmm.
and hadn't watched wrestling in a long time
Yeah.
heard he was
Yeah.
retiring and thought, yeah, I might want to check that out, and then saw this incredible show.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe now they are regular viewers again. Maybe they're more interested in what's going on. Like, I think it did a great service to that. And also,
Yeah.
you know with regard to Sting's run, like, they kept him as a legend, and they let him do something that pretty much no one of his generation, none of his contemporaries could do, and that is go out completely 100% on his own terms.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yes. I
like,
mean,
when you
there
think
will
about it,
be
oh,
well, there will be some people who say, okay, but it's a legend's job to put people over on the way out. But he
yeah, the Young
did
Bucks
that.
didn't need that.
The Young Bucks didn't need that, but also like Darby Allin is a gigantic star. In like, I think Darby Allin definitely would have been a star without Sting, but with
Mm-hmm.
Sting, I mean, it put a spotlight on how awesome this guy is.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Darby Allin is made for life for his entire career now.
Well, and
It's like,
imagine the lessons he learned from Sting too. Just
yeah,
like being
exactly.
near that guy's wealth of knowledge. Like, how much of a better wrestler now is Darby Allin for having done that? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
And just like but just to quell those complaints, like, oh, he went 30-0, he never put anybody over. It's like, nah, he got Darby over to a degree, uh, to a
mhm.
like a larger degree. Not that Darby couldn't have done it on his
And
own,
also,
but
what are you saying? You saying that Sting didn't, like, what, take enough bumps because he took far too many for my
he
liking.
did not
You
phone it
know,
in.
like
But there were
what are you trying to say here? Like, the man's wrestled for 30 years. Who cares if the last few years he wins all his matches? Like,
yeah.
he
But
did
I
a
was so
lot to
glad
put over Darby and the company, and that's all that matters.
I was so glad that he won on the way out because just because I know like he was calling his shots for this, but
Hmm.
apparently Tony Khan and everyone said like, yeah, no, you really got to win this because it had to have that feel good moment at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
And like you said, the Young Bucks don't need it. The Young Bucks could lose every single match at this point.
Hmm.
But Sting and Darby Allin going out on top, I thought was absolutely the right move. And now it sets it up where you can do a tournament, maybe a Continental Classic style thing for
Yeah.
the tag titles. So that'll be really cool too. It was just perfect.
Everybody wins.
No
Sting gets
notes.
a great
Yeah.
retirement. Darby Allin gets his star made. Tony Khan gets to book a tournament. Everyone's doing what they
Yeah.
love.
We're gonna have some playing matches for the tournament. So is that part of the tournament? They're playing matches like NCAA the tournament. I was like, okay.
Oh, Jesus! Just tell me they're not partnering with FanDuel or
Oh,
Bet 365 or
I
something.
think they got a DraftKings. They have a DraftKings sponsorship.
Ugh. But people betting on professional wrestling is so mind-boggling to me. But it happens.
It happens.
Like,
There was that guy who lost like a lot of money at WrestleMania 30 when Lesnar beat Undertaker. I was like,
yeah,
well,
yeah, that was, and it was a pretty sure thing too. But
if I
I
was
loved. I was just
I
gonna
was just
say,
gonna say, if I was Vince McMahon or Undertaker or Lesnar, like, what's stopping me from just like going on betonline.org and going, this one, guys, this is the one where we screw them. The
yeah,
odds are in our favor.
ever in our favor. But I just wanted to bring up regarding Sting the number of people who've paid tribute to him
Mhm.
out there, like it's a universal thing. But we got one of those wonderful little multiversal fourth wall breaking
Oh
moments
yeah.
that I just die for when it comes to wrestling on Raw, when
Yeah.
Michael Cole and Corey Graves actually congratulated Sting and like said it was a great match, and then went back to doing what they do, but
If
like
you
just
ever
them
needed more
acknowledging.
if you ever needed more evidence that Vince McMahon has absolutely nothing to do with this company anymore, it was this. That
Yeah.
never would have happened under his watch. But
Hmm.
Triple H respects wrestling history. He respects what Sting's brought to the
Hmm.
table. So,
Well, Triple
I
H doesn't
absolutely,
live in a bubble.
yes, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he
Mhm,
understands there's other wrestling to the wrestling world. And while he doesn't go out of his way to, big it up or give it props that it doesn't need or might, hinder the WWE's status over them, he acknowledges it, and that's
mhm.
important.
Yeah, and that's the biggest difference between him and McMahon. Vince was like, if it didn't happen in WWE, it doesn't matter. And Triple
Mhm,
H, 180 in the opposite direction.
mhm.
So if you're like a wrestling fan and a WWE fan, Triple H is perfect for you. So,
Yes, true.
but yeah, I
But he
did
couldn't get
notice
Sting out of one thing though.
beating him.
Well, there's that, but he couldn't get Sting out of the felony that he's been wanted for the last 30 years.
Oh, the what actually led to him adopting the Crow character? That's
Exactly.
right.
Yes. Yes. In what was it? I guess it would be 96 or 97.
96. It was 96.
Sting
Yeah.
fully stole a cop car. Just got in a cop car and drove away on Nitro when I think he was chasing the NWO or something. But they never
It,
showed him bringing it back. He just took off in the car.
oh, it was they just commandeered a police car. Like the entitlement of being a professional wrestler in an angle. No, officer, we need this right now. I'm going to go chase my wrestling rival in a cop car. And somehow this just made all the sense
Okay.
in the world. It was like, well, of course you would just take a cop car. I don't know. The writing team must have been playing Grand Theft Auto that day. That's the only other time
Was
I've witnessed stealing a cop car being done so, I'll say
so
willy
easily.
nilly, so easily. So it's
You
not
know?
even like they didn't even take a beat to go like, should we steal a cop car to go after them? That seems a little excessive. Would we get in
Nope.
trouble? It was
Let's
just
go.
we've got a goal, and that is the fastest way
I
to
don't
get
even
there.
think it was like I don't even think it was the NWO they were chasing. I think it was like the Horsemen or something. Like it was yeah, and we didn't I'm pretty sure we didn't see him again until he looked like the Crow.
I have it
So,
in my head that that was the last time we saw
yeah.
Surfer Sting, right? Yeah, so
And then like he
maybe
changed into the Crow so that they wouldn't catch him. That's his disguise to be like, I'm not that Sting. He had colorful face paint. Look at me.
because he went okay, so then he started like appearing in the rafters as the
Yeah.
Crow, and then there was the War Games and the fake Crow, and that's when he really turned on them. But the actual putting on the face paint and going dark, that was after he stole the cop
Hmm.
car. That
So
didn't
what
have to do with WCW turning on him or whatever like that. He was a wanted person for Grand Theft Auto.
Oh god. And just one final thought about Sting's retirement
Mhm.
before we move on. I just want to say that the only disappointment that I had was that motherfucker didn't play Message in a Bottle once.
They did get his Metallica music on there though.
Yeah, that was
So
very
yeah.
nice for me as a Metallica fan. That was nice
Yeah.
to hear that. And it's a weird live version too, so it's like, ooh, deep cut.
Yeah. See, that's what you'll get from Tony Khan that you won't get from a publicly traded company. Tony Khan will spend that money going like, yes, it is worth a $250,000 to get the right. They're
Yes,
like
just take it
something,
all.
whatever
Take it
it.
all.
But I heard he paid like $100,000 to have the final countdown play at Forbidden Door with Brian Danielson, and I was
Yeah.
at that show, and I love that entrance. I'm super glad Tony Khan spent $100,000 on the rights to that.
On
But
that
like,
third
you won't
yeah.
get that in a publicly traded company like WWE because somebody would be like, "Hey, was it worth it to spend this money?" Because
And then
it's
everyone would look
not,
at them and
but
go,
it's cool, right?
yeah.
Like, so That's why you want someone just playing with
Yeah.
toys, running at least one of your wrestling promotions, because it's cooler that way.
That is a big difference between Triple H and Vince McMahon, though, in that
Mhm.
Vince McMahon was obsessed with own. Shocking. He was a
Yeah.
control freak who was obsessed with owning everything. So
Yeah.
it's like he didn't want you to use music that he had to license. He wanted you to use music that he owned, so that it could
Mhm.
be. It's like how many people leave the WWE, go back to an indie name or whatever, and then when they come back, we're supposed to pretend they're still like Emma when we know her name's Tennille Dashwood. Like she's been Tennille
Yeah.
Dashwood for the last 6 years. Like,
This
you know,
woman has been gone for 8 years. She never left her house.
yeah,
It's like,
exactly. And it's again, it's Triple H being like, wrestling exists outside
yeah.
of WWE. It's better to acknowledge it than look stupid pretending we don't know what's happening. You know?
Which seems like such a common sense thing, but the number one wrestling promotion in the world for 40 years had the mentality that if it didn't happen here, it didn't happen at
Yeah,
all. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, then
Crazy.
it's interesting too because there's so many times where I will see someone in WWE or remember that someone had like a brief run in WWE from somewhere else.
Mhm.
And it's always just like, oh, yeah, they did that, didn't they? Because nothing they do is ever memorable.
Yeah.
Like with the exception of like Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair's WWE, like in Ric Flair's first WWF run,
Uh-huh.
what did he do except have a blurred out belt? Really, like what was
Um,
super memorable about the whole thing? The belt. That's it, right? And then he dropped the title to Sean, or he dropped the title to Brett, or
Macho
whatever. Like
Man, Macho Man.
Macho
Oh,
Man. Yeah, he
and
won it
Brett,
from
and
Brett.
Brett.
Yeah,
Yeah, he won it.
and
He won it, and he lost it to Macho Man, then
yeah,
lost it to Brett.
you know,
Um, but
Dusty's
he did
remembered for
have
the
those.
polka dots. Dusty's remembered for dancing with Sapphire or whatever. Like, not the incredible things that they did leading up to this,
Mhm.
just like the weird, goofy things that WWE had them done. So,
Harley Race is
yeah,
King Harley Race. It was like,
yeah, to this
you know,
day, like,
instead of the guy who was like, well, yeah, in the video game, he's still King Harley Race. I was like, well, no, you want the guy who was the world child.
yeah, like,
But that person doesn't exist in WWE. You know who is on the opposite end of that spectrum
me.
is well, yes,
Oh,
sure,
okay, cool.
but also the newly named to the WWE Hall of Fame, Paul Heyman.
Oh man, I was so happy to see that.
Yeah, me too, man.
What a
And it's going to be in
fantastic thing.
Philadelphia. It's going to be in
Yeah.
Philadelphia. His induction, I will say this right now. His induction
Yeah.
speech will be the greatest of all time.
It'll be their next one man show that they tout
Oh God,
around
I would
with
totally go to a
pay-per-views and stuff.
Paul Heyman.
Oh my,
Yeah.
absolutely. Of all the documentaries that WWE has done, and there've been
Mhm.
many, and a lot of them have been very good. My favorite is the Paul Heyman documentary.
The one on Heyman or the one on ECW?
My name is Paul
My name
Heyman.
is
The
Paul
one the
Heyman.
one that
Yeah,
follows
yeah,
him through. It's
yeah.
phenomenal. It's fantastic. And you really get a sense of who Paul Heyman is. Not the character, not
Mhm.
the guy you hear stories about, but you get a sense of who he is and why he did some of the stuff he did. And you may not still agree with it. I don't still agree with it, but you understand where he's coming from with it. And like his
Yeah.
contributions to modern wrestling, are you kidding
Oh
me?
yeah. Yeah.
He is just as much he has contributed just as much as Vince McMahon has.
Oh yeah. His
Just maybe not
fingerprints
on the
are
same
all
scale, but
over.
you know,
His fingerprints have been all over the main event of WWE for over a decade now. I
hmm
mean, you go through Brock Lesnar and then through, well, actually, you go all the
hmm
way back to CM Punk's
yeah,
1 year long reign when CM Punk was a Paul Heyman guy,
yeah,
and then into Lesnar's return when Lesnar came back from the UFC, then through to the Bloodline and everything like that. He's
yeah,
always been involved in his own storylines, and he
hmm
also like his promos
yeah,
like have narrated the WWE's main storylines for over a decade now.
hmm
And that's in addition to what he did with ECW, building that company
yep,
up, exposing North American wrestling fans to styles that they maybe hadn't seen before.
hmm
But ECW did a lot of that. And very revolutionary in
and
terms of the Attitude Era. So,
even going back farther than that to when he's 17 years old at Madison Square Garden as a ring
mhm.
photographer.
Yeah.
Like learning about all the different into the idea of wrestling journalism,
Yeah.
like he was at the very beginning of that, working with Bill Apter and stuff. Like
Hmm.
he's been everywhere, his fingerprints on everything. And I am so happy to see him going into the Hall of Fame. Like that's great.
Yeah. And I'm just so glad he's doing it in Philadelphia too, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why he had to go in this time because it's in
Yeah.
Philly. You don't know when you're going back to Philly because the my first thought when I heard he's going in, I was like, that's it's a weird time to celebrate him when he's the
Yeah.
manager of the biggest heel in the company right now. That's maybe
Yeah.
something that you might not want to do, but it's in Philadelphia. You need to do it this year.
Yeah. And
So,
also it's like, we've had active wrestlers inducted in the Hall of Fame before.
mhm. Yeah.
So there is, it's kind of like, I believe the Hall of Fame honor is more about like your career to this point versus like your overall entire thing. Because he may go on and do even bigger, better things, But at the like, he's definitely a guy who could get multiple inductions as well. Like he could absolutely be in there a few times.
Yeah. Um, how WWE handles the Hall of Fame moving forward under new management is going to be very interesting because it
Hmm.
was very clear with Vince McMahon. This is just another event that they're promoting. Who can they put on a marquee
Yep.
that will? But Triple H, he snuck a lot of people into the WWE Hall of Fame
Hmm.
without like a ceremony. There's a name for it. It's something like the builder's wing or
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
something along those lines where he snuck in people that you wouldn't do
Yeah.
a big thing for, right? But contributed to wrestling. Um so I think you'll see with Triple H running the show, I think you will see
Hmm.
more of a like instead of trying to put on the best event with the biggest name that's available, he's going to try and do it in a way that makes sense, honor the people who have
Hmm.
earned it, and so it's going to be interesting to
It
see how it
is.
goes forward. So
And I
so far
mean,
we've got Paul Heyman and Bull
yeah,
Nakano, and I think
rumored
that's
that Meng or Haku is going to be in there as well.
I've heard that too. I think that would be
I
fantastic.
love that. Love
uh
this. Love all of this.
that could possibly coincide with Haku's son Tama Tonga
Hmm.
coming into the company, and
Hmm.
then there is no blood relation between Haku's family and the bloodline.
Yeah.
But yeah, as
Well,
the Rock always refers to Haku as his uncle Haku, so there's you
well, they've
know
already said like they've already sort of been slipping it in here and there that like yeah we consider him a
yeah.
brother or a cousin
Uh,
or something like part of the bloodline. So I think that he would might find his way. But at the same time, and this is a total aside again. We're spinning on tangerines over here. Um, I want to see him in Solo. Like I want to see those guys wrestle
yeah. Well, you
bad.
don't know. Maybe
So
he comes in and he aligns with Jey Uso, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, true, true. Oh, that'd be
So,
fun.
but they've been like Triple H has wanted to bring in the Bullet Club guys for the longest time. I kind of feel like the ship has sailed a little bit. Like Bullet Club does not have the same buzz that it did
No,
before. But
that's
Tama
why they're
Tonga
just
is one of
called the club.
the club, well, they're the OC now, so they're
Yeah.
from Orange County. Um,
California.
so because when Triple H wanted to bring in Jay White before, who was
Yeah.
also big in the Bullet Club when it was in New Japan, then Vince McMahon came back. There was a hiring freeze. Jay White ends up going to AEW. Now Triple H has the pen again, signs up Tama Tonga, but instead of going into the Bullet Club storyline, I think he's way more valuable in the Bloodline storyline.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if they bring in other guys like Jacob Fatu. Have you seen Jacob
Yeah.
Fatu at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
I mean, that guy I think is
Hmm.
incredible. Lots of other
When
guys
when
out
are
there.
they gonna?
Lance in Hawaii.
I wonder when they're gonna involve Naomi.
Naomi. Yep.
You know,
Um,
she
I
is
don't.
part of.
I don't know because like right now she's like true blue baby face, and so also
Hmm.
who's she married to? Jimmy. She's married to Jimmy, right?
Jimmy or
Is it
Jay.
Jimmy or
Yeah,
Jay?
one of
What?
those two.
One of those guys. So
The one with the long, curly-ish hair. It's black. You know, they
But it's
tend to refer
interesting
to
though, like
themselves as Oos a lot.
if Cody beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, assuming that happens, I wonder what happens after that. Like, what happens with the
Mm.
bloodline after that? Like, you've got so much invested in the bloodline that,
Mm.
like, obviously Roman's going to probably go away for a while. But do you have like Jimmy Solo, maybe Tama Tonga, kind of
Mm.
continue it on in Roman's absence? I'm interested to see where they go with the
I
bloodline
don't know. I
after
think it'd be
Roman
fun
loses
to
the
have
belt.
Roman just like immediately be like, "No, I want it back," and like stick around for a while,
Mm-hmm.
maybe through SummerSlam when he fights his famous cousin,
Yeah.
and that's how like I know that there's like the idea of WrestleMania kind of being the reset button and the start of the new season or whatever, but no, I would love
Mm-hmm.
it if the next season started like that with Roman Reigns being like, no, 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 I got to get that back, and it becomes an obsession. And then you can sink into like a bloodline more deep into like the bloodline civil war. There's a lot more of them now, so picking sides is interesting. And if the bloodline civil war was to culminate with a Rock versus Roman match,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a bad way to blow that off after a summer. So, you know, but it'd be interesting to say the least.
Well, we really have no idea because everything changed recently, right? Like the original
Yeah.
plan was we're going to do Cody and Roman at SummerSlam, and now it's like, oh crap, we're doing that next month.
Yep.
So, so what they had planned for that stretch is now completely up in the air.
Yeah.
So, so they are going to have to scramble a little bit, and I think a lot of the Rock's promo on YouTube that he did was trying to clear
Yeah.
up any plot holes. I thought I was like, they should have just labeled that promo. The Rock clears up plot holes
What
because
were
he
some of the
get
big ones that he cleared up for you?
well. The big plot hole was, hey, remember that SmackDown where you came out and Cody said, "Well, I'm not coming for Roman, or I'm coming for Roman, but not at WrestleMania." And The Rock came out. It's like, so what was that all about? So The Rock basically said in this promo, we had an agreement. We went out, we had dinner, and I showed you, I was like, the people want this match. They want The Rock versus Roman Reigns. And basically WWE needs this right now. And
Yeah.
he sold Cody on it. Cody was like, all right. Well, no, I
That's
think
it.
he said it stings, but I agree. But
Can I
then
get
when
dessert?
he's paying. I've
Yeah.
seen how much money he's paying. He's paying. I make a lot too, though. Uh,
Just
so,
to be clear, I can afford this. It's about making a point. Go on.
but then the storyline was basically like Cody changed his mind at the press conference after hearing The Rock talk about all this, and he was like, "No, no," and then certainly after the slap. And so basically, the storyline is they had an agreement that Cody was going to step aside, but then like Cody, I guess, also heard the fans obviously that they didn't
Mm-hmm.
like it and didn't like how The Rock was talking about his family being the royal family of wrestling at the press conference and changed his mind. So,
Mm-hmm.
you can always explain stuff. So,
It's true. Don't ever
like,
think you can't. Like,
yeah,
like if you're working for WWE and you're like, do we need to explain that? Should we explain that? The answer is always yes.
yeah, like even if it's just like throw it up on YouTube, give me a reason. It's like, please tell me who Dominic's biological father is. I want
Just
to know.
settle it once and for all.
Because it was different a decade ago. You said it was Eddie. And now you don't talk about it being Eddie anymore. But he looks like Eddie and he wrestles like Eddie. Tell me what's going on. Sorry.
It's okay. You've been holding that in for a while. I
But
understand.
you know how WWE press conferences get a real bad thing because a lot of them are in storyline and the people at them just ask storyline questions. It's like, okay, fine. If you're gonna do storyline press conferences, that's totally fine. You can do that.
Yeah.
Somebody ask who Dominic's father is. Somebody clear this up for me. Is there a reason you're not talking about it now? What are we supposed to think?
Put it together, you cowards.
I address it, you cowards. I can't live with this uncertainty.
It's been 20 years.
I think it's only been 10. Or maybe
It's
10,
cost
15.
me 30 years of my life.
Thinking about it has aged me double.
I am 22 years old.
Really, I really do want somebody to ask that to like Dominic or whatever. It's clear, like he does like at least 3 of Eddie's moves. He does the springboard senton, does the frog splash, does the 3 amigos. He's got a mullet.
And they're always like, "Oh, he got that from his Uncle Eddie or whatever." And
he looks like he's too tall
was
to
he
be
an
Rey
uncle?
Mysterio's kid. Yep. Yeah.
So, well, no, because I saw Kevin Owens' kid.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes kids are just tall.
That kid is very tall.
Yeah, Kevin Owens is not a small man. And his kid looks to be like 6 to 8 inches taller than he is.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's going to be a wrestler. He has to be, right? I know he was a fan growing up.
Yeah, well, that's sort of how I discovered this.
That's going to happen. Yeah,
like I did, because they were doing. They're asking Kevin Owens. They're like, "Would you want your son to be a wrestler?" And he's like, "My son is gigantic. Look at this picture." And I was like, "Your son is gigantic. That's unbelievable." And he's like, "But if he doesn't want to be a wrestler, he doesn't have to be a wrestler. Like whatever makes him happy, you know."
So all of that is so perfect for Kevin Owens. First of all, just like wanting to show off. That is such a little freakish. Like, you gotta fucking see this. He's huge. But then also, like, you know, like wanting to be a good parent. Like, he can do whatever he wants. My gigantic son can do whatever he wants. I heard the funny. I heard no. I heard Becky Lynch say the funniest thing in an interview concerning her kid. So her and Seth Rollins have a kid. Like, this is going to be a fantastic wrestler. Like, it's going to have all the genes to be a fantastic wrestler. And so Becky Lynch was talking about how she was sitting with Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes said something about being Dusty's kid and being a Nepo baby. And Becky Lynch said, "I used to have such a chip on my shoulder for Nepo babies, but then I had a Nepo baby." And I was like, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want."
Yeah.
I just think it's funny. It's like, yeah, I guess when your child is a Nepo baby, it's a little different. I worked hard against Nepo babies so that I could have a Nepo baby.
Yeah, I get her like arch enemy was Charlotte Flair.
Yeah.
The ultimate Nepo baby. Like, yeah.
So like Becky's gonna feel like a kinship with whoever her child's rival is, you know?
Oh, yeah.
That was me trying to fight that Nepo baby to get to the top spot.
That kid's gonna get in a lot of schoolyard fights, but they're all gonna be amazing fights. And
has there I don't think that there has ever been like a wrestler, like a child wrestler couple made entirely from wrestlers. All right. Leading up to this, we were talking about Will Ospreay and AEW.
Yeah.
And I thought we should hit the old record button.
Record
because Will Ospreay and AEW is going to be a very, very big deal.
Yes. Yes. The kind of guy that you build the company around. You absolutely could, like, I think he's going to do this, you know, hanging out with the Jackal and doing his thing for a bit. But eventually when you've got him, he's the type of guy that comes in perfectly cooked. You just need to season him a little, and he's going to be a huge deal for AEW.
Yeah, like it's weird to say because he hasn't been on American TV a lot before. Like, he's come in and done whatever, but he hasn't been a full-time member of the show. But so you can't say like, oh, he's got a track record of drawing ratings or getting a lot of people behind him. But clearly the fans at Revolution knew who he was, right? Like, that was a huge
that doesn't
ovation
surprise
for
me,
him.
though.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. It Sting's last match, the wrestling fan is going to be there. That's who's going to be in that audience.
And the other big thing with Osprey is you now have this show in London's Wembley Stadium that you're going to do every year.
Mm.
And so I would have to imagine that they want him main eventing that show. So that's in July or August. So he's going
Tickets
to
are on
come
sale
in
now.
guns. He's going to come in guns a blazing. So like I think that we're going to see him feud with Don Callis's new Parade of Human Oddities, or the Don
Mm.
Callis family,
Yeah.
I believe they're called. Um, but with Will Ospreay, the big thing is like he is such a good wrestler. I like I've never seen. I I don't know if he's better now than Kenny Omega in his prime was,
Mm.
but it's close. I would say Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, and Will Ospreay, all in the last 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
have done wrestling on a level that I don't think has ever been done before. Like I do
Yeah.
think it's you can't really compare like modern wrestling with past wrestling because it depends on
It's a
what the fans
totally
are used to.
different. Yeah.
Like Kevin Von Erich doing a crossbody block off the top rope would like drive people mad back
Yeah.
in 1983. It was the most athletic thing they'd seen. So it's hard to compare it on an athletic level like that, but those are the three top wrestlers in the world. Kenny Omega, I mean, he's had injuries in recent years,
Yeah.
but Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, Will Ospreay, all three are in AEW now.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So
The AEW is sitting on the best wrestling roster in possibly history.
yeah, like bell to bell wrestling
Yeah.
roster. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I not they don't have the star power that WWE
Yes.
has, obviously, and they
But they
don't
do
have.
within the wrestling world. They've
Well,
conquered the
yes,
wrestling world. They don't
yeah,
have the like pop culture power that WWE
hmm
has. But I think that, you know, people that are fans of wrestling versus people that are just fans of WWE or just, you know, kind of casual fans or whatever. They know these people and they know
hmm
what wrestling, and I think that's what leads to a lot of the issues. There's never bad matches in AEW. There's
hmm
just really poor storytelling. And I think that
yes,
finding that balance is where they head next. That's what this era is going to do for
yeah,
AEW.
like you can, yeah, exactly. Like AEW, Tony Khan can put together matches. There are some great matches, and there
Yep.
have been some AEW storylines that have really landed. The biggest example being the Brochachos, Adam Cole and
Mm,
MJF. If you looked at any the ratings pattern for any Dynamite or Collision, there was huge rating spikes for everything to do with the Brochachos,
yeah.
right? So if you can mix in like those storylines and promos, that's kind of what brings people into your company, and the matches are what keep them entertained
Hmm.
while they're there, right?
Yeah.
So if they could get a few more brochacho storylines to really hit, and then you keep the audience engaged with the really good matches, they're
Mhm.
going to see tremendous growth, right? So
Yeah. Hopefully.
we'll see. Yeah. They do seem kind of hit or miss on their stories. I think while a lot of people love the Brochacho storyline, the next
Yeah.
MJF storyline with like the devil and
Mm.
going up against it didn't land, right? Like people didn't really take to that.
Mhm.
And so it's one of those things where it's like MJF is a huge ratings draw when he's doing something that you like. You can still affect your big
Yeah.
stars with, like this storyline in WWE with The Rock and Cody Rhodes. It's not perfect, but it's filled with stars. And so it's getting huge ratings, right? Like it doesn't matter if there's like some nonsense to it. Like, why did Cody just give his shot away and then take it back? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
There's a lot of like, you know, leaps of logic in it, but I
yeah.
also we as wrestling fans owe it to ourselves and the 6-year-olds inside of us that fell in love with this shit sometimes to overlook that stuff, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
just be
You have
like,
to.
do you know why it happened? Because wrestling. That's why. And it's like you just have to kind of accept some of those things. Like I understand there
Mhm,
are people that want everything like explained, and did they have to explain it? You know, we've talked about that. They do have to make it clear so that we can understand it. But at the same
mhm,
time, It's like in Goldberg's streak, we all know he didn't go 125-0 or whatever. It's physically and psychologically possible. Like it couldn't have happened, but we were all like, yeah, I hope he gets 126. That's the magic of it all. So just relax.
I just wanted to stay on Will Ospreay a little bit because I've watched this guy like ever since he got into New Japan Pro Wrestling,
Mhm.
and he started off and he was a junior heavyweight, and him and Ricochet would have these
Yes.
crazy matches that were absolutely insane. They made no sense whatsoever.
Those were
They
like
were basic.
viral matches.
Oh
Like
yeah,
people that
yeah.
didn't watch wrestling were like, what is this?
hmm And I remember there was this thing, Big Van Vader, who obviously he was a big star in New
It
Japan
was a
Pro
big
Wrestling.
van.
He kind of wrote like, "Hey, this was great about the Osprey Ricochet match." I was like, "This is great gymnastics," but like, I
Mm.
don't see two guys trying to hurt each other and win a fight. Um, which like I get
Yeah.
that totally, and obviously coming from a heavyweight, it's great. But this was happening in New Japan Pro Wrestling's Best of the Super Juniors tournament, where
Mhm.
it's all small guys doing like a bunch of flips and stuff. Like
Yeah.
that was the point of the tournament, right? So, I
Yeah.
kind of get that. But so early Osprey matches when he got to New Japan Pro Wrestling were very high spots, risky moves, like the most elaborate like flips that don't really make sense.
Mhm.
And then Chris Jericho kind of got involved. There was this spot that Osprey did with Marty Skrull. I think it was
Yep.
Marty Skrull. They did a standing Spanish fly on the apron and just about broke both their necks.
Right.
They didn't clear it. It looked really, really, really bad. And it could have been really bad. Like it could have been a serious, serious injury for both of them. So Chris Jericho apparently contacted Will Ospreay not long after this match and was
Mm.
like, "Buddy, you gotta you gotta cool it. You gotta take it down several notches, or you're
Yeah.
gonna end up like your hero, the Dynamite Kid, in a wheelchair by the time you're 30."
Mhm.
Obviously there's different factors
Yeah,
at
yeah.
play
Yeah.
there. Dynamite Kid kept wrestling after doctors told him he shouldn't. But anyway, and you did see Osprey start to change his style after that. He also bulked up and went heavyweight. And so then adapting his style to wrestle other heavyweights. So he moved away from basically
Mhm.
being kind of like a Young Bucks Ricochet kind of California indie scene style
Yeah.
to more like he's kind of similar to Kenny Omega, I would say. Like if you
Yeah.
look at
I'd make that
yeah,
comparison. Yeah.
I would say that the transition from junior heavyweight to heavyweight and pre and post conversation with Chris Jericho is like a move from a
Mhm.
Ricochet to a Kenny Omega kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
did seem like he focused more on having a good match, like full match,
Yeah.
as opposed to just doing things like little clips that would go viral on Twitter while you're
Yeah.
trying to make a name for yourself, right?
Less
So I
sizzle, more
kind
steak.
yeah, I kind of watched this evolution of Osprey over the years in terms of his in-ring style. And then somewhere along the line, he went from not being able to doing a promo at all to being like the best promo guy in the world. I don't know what happened, but at some point somebody told him, always be yelling, say bruv every second word, really like speak in your thickest accent possible, and swear a lot.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's kind of taken that and run with it. And his he did a promo leading up to All In where he talked about how this was the most important match of my life. This was the most
Mhm.
important moment in my life. It takes me from being like I'll earn enough money in this match to change my life, bruv. And it was like I got goosebumps. I was like, this is really important for him. So
He's
he's
got a lot of
motivated.
authenticity. Like, yeah, and those are the best promos, the authentic ones, right? Where like he really believes
Yeah,
this. So,
because that was actually true. Like it does like that being put on that stage just months before
yeah.
he was about to be a free agent to make way more money than he's ever made in his life. Like that match was his audition to make life changing money. and you felt that from him.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of like passion and like drive that comes out in his promos and his matches that are going to make Will Ospreay a giant star. AEW knows that, and that's why
Mhm.
you're going to see him march to the world title, or at least challenging for
Yeah.
the world title at All In. I mean, maybe they'll Cody Rhodes WrestleMania 39 him at the show. Who
Maybe.
knows? But
I don't know. Do you think they'll go back for another Wembley? But I haven't heard
I
how tickets are going, so I don't know.
I think if Osprey was to win the world championship, they're up at like over 40. Like they're not going to get like 80,000 as
Yeah.
last time, but they're going to have like a, 40,000, 50,000 stadium show. It'll still be
Good
good.
for them.
Um, but that show, if you put the title on Osprey, that show, that's like the crowning of him
Hmm.
as like, like a British world champion, a world champion from the UK, on a major scale, in a major company. That's huge for that scene. And it's
Yeah.
going to be, the atmosphere in there is going to be like they just won the World Cup, which we know will never happen. Like the World Cup of soccer. If you've
I was-
ever if you've ever seen England at the World Cup, they're not going to win that. It's not going to happen. And they all want to, but they won't. But
It's
they'll get
sad.
Will
But
Osprey. They'll get Will Osprey at All In.
they'll all go home on their large yachts and sleep on their piles of money, sad and knowing that they couldn't make it in that tournament.
Yes. Yes.
Has a modern North American company
Mm-hmm.
ever had their world title change hands in the UK or
Yeah,
abroad?
AJ Styles won the title there. I think he beat Jinder for the title in England.
Was it in the UK?
Yeah, I
Oh.
think so.
So
I'm
my
like,
question is entirely irrelevant.
but it would be like it's one of their own, right? It's what Drew
Yeah.
McIntyre didn't do.
Yeah.
And
And that's
right,
kind
like,
of the finish that I remember is in these kind of events, and I'm thinking like AEW doesn't have a history to have to sort of weigh itself against. So it
yeah.
could do it. It could totally do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it
Mhm.
could totally change its world title in the UK and it'd be fine. So yeah, that was just my thought process. I didn't say it
And
was
also
great, but it was my process.
And also, because Will Ospreay is seen as the best wrestler in the world to the segment of the audience that is looking at 100% match quality and checks cage match and Meltzer's ratings, to them, you can argue what percentage they make up, but to them, he's the
Mhm.
best in the world. And him getting crowned with a world title in Wembley Stadium,
Mhm.
that's them winning the world champion. That's the whole scene winning the world
Yeah.
championship. And I think building to that, I guess it's not that far away. It's only
Mhm.
like 4 months away now. So
Yeah.
you've got 4 months to build Will Ospreay up into this top tier superstar.
Well, and you've got, like you say, you've got the option of doing the Cody, right? Where he
Screwing him
doesn't.
out of it.
Well, no, it's too soon. It's too quick. He didn't quite get there, but you can see the
Yeah.
potential. And then over the course of the next year, he goes back to Wembley, and that's when he wins it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
probably wouldn't do that. I'd just have him win it on this one.
that's
I
fair.
think I think what WWE did only works because they've got well, at that time, a 38-year history of WrestleManias where
Mm,
we're used to seeing the top babyface finish their story, and so it means a little bit more when Cody didn't.
mm,
And I do think when Cody does finish his story at WrestleMania 40, assuming that he does, I do think it might mean more because he lost it the first time,
oh,
because it made the
definitely.
chase longer. Because
Yeah.
my one point as to why it was kind of okay that they had him lose. Well, one, I like seeing people lose and then like find a new spirit and
Yeah.
a new reason to get up and
And become a
go
pirate, apparently.
and I become a pirate. Yar! I didn't win me match, but now I steal booty.
Arr,
So,
arr,
yar.
arr.
No, but I like the idea of like your hero should
Yeah.
fail. because everybody's the top baby face in their own story,
Mhm.
and we all fail from time to time. So the morality play is you
Mhm.
pick yourself up and you keep trying and you keep doing it. So
Absolutely.
I think it's good to have the good guy fail from time to time. But particularly in Cody's case, because he had just returned from a long injury at the Royal Rumble. So
Yeah.
so it was just Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. That's a very short chase. But this way you've got a 15-month long chase, right?
Yep.
That's
No,
longer.
absolutely.
That's a longer
That
period
is
of time.
correct.
Yeah.
But like it's no, it's and that's why I say like maybe they do that with him to give him that opportunity
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
grow in that way. But I also don't think there's a wrong choice here. Like if they chose to
No.
put in our hypothetical booking of the hypothetical show in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
8 months, like
In
yeah,
8 months, who knows? I mean,
maybe who
God,
knows what can
he could come
happen.
out like the way wrestling goes now. Osprey will come out. He has a match against Kyle Fletcher tonight. He'll tear his ACL. He'll be
Yeah.
gone for 9 months. They'll be like, "Oh crap, what do we do now?" Somehow QT Marshall will be the world champion, and we'll all be like, "How did we get here?"
Yeah, there does seem to be a lot of that going around, doesn't
There's a
there?
lot of torn ACLs. People are tearing ACLs all over the place.
Like they
But,
should have a pre-constructive surgery on their ACL.
yeah,
Can
that's
you
what
get
I'm
in there and just
wondering.
like strengthen it a bit?
Because it seems like once you repair an ACL, that thing's not going to blow for like a decade. I was like, well, can we preemptively? It was like, just if you sign
Mm.
someone, go, okay, buddy, we're just gonna fix both your ACLs right now. Get
Just saying,
that out
take
of the
them out.
way. We're just gonna be like, yeah, just that we are a strictly mechanical ACL company. We
We're
do
gonna
not allow any organic ACLs on our roster.
welcome to WWE. Here are your robot legs.
It's not AI that's going to take your job. It's robots are going to take your ligaments.
Oh,
Maybe
that got weird.
maybe a
uh,
little. I don't know.
Osprey is a huge star. You know who else is a huge star?
It's a huge star.
Rhea Ripley.
Rhea Ripley is a gigantic star. Have
Because
we talked about what happened in Australia?
I don't think so because there wasn't like a whole bunch to talk about. It was kind of like I don't know. It was a perfectly cromulent show. Like nothing. It felt like an early Saudi show. You know what I mean? Like
It
where
was like everything that you thought was going to happen on that show. If I told you, hey Jeff, tell me what's going to happen on Elimination Chamber,
Mhm.
those were the things that happened.
yeah, yeah. It was there was like they kept promising surprises and all this kind of stuff, and no, not
Well, I
really.
liked Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. And I will tell you why I liked Rhea Ripley versus
That
Nia Jax.
sounds exciting. Please
It's the
continue.
type of match that would be a gigantic main event in WWE and get booed out of the building in AEW
Yeah.
or New Japan Pro Wrestling,
Mhm.
but or Stardom.
Yeah.
I don't know about AAA.
Anywhere
Anyway,
but
and the reason for
WWE,
this
really.
is Nia Jax isn't a very good wrestler. She's a large woman, and look, like larger wrestlers are not
As
as
agile.
technically gifted, as agile. They don't move as smoothly as smaller people do, right? So,
Sometimes. Yep.
well, sometimes obviously, like there's differences. I just mean heavyweights like Omos and
Well,
Big Show,
I think
and
if I could, I think you're
mhm,
kind of getting at the talent levels in terms of Rhea versus Nia Jax were very skewed in one direction, and
yes,
that's just the way it is, Nia.
mhm,
Unfortunately, you Rhea is the star, and you are meant to be a big challenge for her.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
but that's what it
And play it
was.
off. And
Yeah.
yeah, they succeeded in doing that, but they succeeded in doing it in the way that was like you say, exactly the way you thought it was going to go. And okay, you know,
But
like
I still enjoyed watching that play out
oh
because
yeah,
I saw how they were trying to portray Rhea Ripley. They're trying to portray her like Hulk Hogan, like Goldberg, the
mm,
the unstoppable force that still manages to beat the immovable objects.
yeah,
And it reminded me about how when Hogan was the top guy, they would feed him guys that were larger than him, like King Kong Bundy,
Yep.
like Andre the Giant, like Big John Studd. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, he did have those feuds. Like Macho Man was smaller than him, obviously.
Yeah.
He would feud with Ric Flair for a little bit, but like mainly the
Mhm.
what they would do is send these big guys after him. And so that's kind of what I felt they were doing by sending Nia Jax after Rhea Ripley. It's like, okay, Rhea Ripley is this unstoppable force, but we want her to be a total complete baby face. Obviously, she was going to be a baby face anyway. It was
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
But like, to create the image of her as this unstoppable baby face in the minds of people at home as well,
Mhm.
you put her against the most universally despised woman on your roster who has the most heat but has
Yeah.
also not lost a singles match since she's come back and is also the biggest.
Mhm.
And to the wrestling fan that is not geared towards like the technical skill and the bell to bell stuff,
Yeah.
sometimes the big, larger than life wrestlers are what draw you in. And I
Absolutely.
do think that the spectacle of Rhea Ripley against a larger wrestler and able to still do her moves on him and show like just
Mhm.
how powerful Rhea Ripley is. Like I thought they did a great job of portraying her
Mhm.
as a larger than life star, like a Goldberg, like a Hogan, and
Mhm.
nobody can stop her. That's what I felt, and I thought
Yeah.
the match was perfect for that. And did Nia Jax put on a 5-star classic? No, she can't do that. But nobody got hurt.
No.
So
Nobody got hurt, and she walked away with a little bit of shine on her too. In that
I think
you're
so.
right, like she
Yeah.
didn't just roll over and get steamrolled by Rhea or anything like that
Hmm.
too. And it's tough to find. It's just like the predictability of it all.
Yeah.
Because I recognized all the stuff that you were talking about, like I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I get the dynamic of what's going on here. I get the story. I think that it's great and all that, but it's still a story that I've seen time and time again, and it's a
Yeah.
story that felt very like throwbacky,
Hmm. Oh, it was a very
and
old. It
and
was
there's
an
nothing
old,
wrong with
tried
that
and true
either.
story. Yeah.
And I mean, like Nia did the best she could.
Hmm.
She was in there to essentially be, like you say, that immovable object. So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
And
And
they put it on last too to show.
yeah,
Look, main eventer, top
that
tier.
surprised me.
I
That
I
surprised me.
hoped they would do that, and I was glad that they did.
Yeah.
Vince wouldn't have. Vince
No,
would
he
not
would
have.
not have.
The men's elimination chamber would have main evented that show.
Without
So
question. Without
yeah.
question. And the rest of the show as well was perfectly okay. It
Yeah. I mean, the thing about predictability is, especially when you get to WrestleMania, you're going to
mm,
be a bit more predictable because your major shows are leading into a major show. So, like, your
yeah.
Royal Rumble's going to be a little predictable because whoever wins it is going to be in a key match at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Same goes
Yeah.
for the Elimination Chamber. Whoever wins is going to be at a key match. So, like, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
However, like it I think it does pay to throw to every once and again, not often
mm,
because you want your storylines to flow properly, but every now and again to throw in something that the fans didn't expect, like Roman
mm.
beating Cody, because the fans didn't expect that.
Yeah. I
So
agree. In those moments the swerve is absolutely perfect. I think
yeah.
what hurt it a little bit too was the fact that Rhea's opponent for WrestleMania
Mhm.
was determined on the same show, if I'm
Yeah.
remembering. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, well, Becky and Rhea is going to be the match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is now not even the chance of a loss here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
I
kind of
think
made it feel a little performative in that, if I can use that term in
oh
professional
yeah, oh yeah.
wrestling
Well, it was
yeah.
one. Well, it's
Like,
all performative, but it doesn't all come off as performative. But this definitely did. Yeah, I don't think it, like, but I don't think that the result for it needed to be in question. I think this was like everybody understood coming in.
mhm.
This isn't like what's going to happen. This is let's give Rhea Ripley her
Yeah.
flowers, right? And it's going to be a 10-minute match at the end of a show that's had 2 elimination chambers and
Mhm.
whatever. Like, this isn't your like it's going on last, but
Yeah.
this isn't like what is it's not like
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it's but for what it was just Rhea Ripley going
Being
over your
great.
top heel.
Yeah.
And now you move into this feud. Well, first Becky has to beat Nia, but then you'll get Becky versus Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. And I think that's an incredible match. It sucks that it's not going to main event either night because of what's going on with Rock and Cody and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
but like Becky and Rhea Ripley, you kind of look at it like Becky going back to WrestleMania 35 and the run as the man, taking the division to a new level.
Oh
And
yeah.
now Ripley's like the leader of this new generation that is kind of in the trails that was blazed by Becky Lynch and Charlotte and
Yeah.
Ronda Rousey's star power as well. So
Yeah, and she fits into that role perfectly too, which is fantastic.
yeah,
Like,
I don't
and
know who's gonna win. I think
Rhea
Ripley,
Ripley.
but yeah,
I don't know. Well, see, it kind of depends on what happens the next few weeks, and which is a stupid thing to say because of course it does. But you know what I mean. Like, if they are looking to, maybe they do a double turn, maybe do a switch or something where Rhea ends up on top and is turns babyface or something,
maybe,
or
maybe because
Becky
I think
or
Rhea
Becky
Rhea is
wins
essentially
and
like a full baby.
becomes heel. Becky wins, becomes heel, something like that. I don't know. It's like there's upsides to both winning because
Yeah.
if Rhea like beats her clean, where do you go next with Rhea? Like who's
Huh.
kind of waiting? It's kind of like you know,
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of tough to picture where everything goes, especially because like they're your two
mhm,
top baby faces, so you want them to be strong throughout the next year, and that's why you don't really see like a lot of baby face versus
yeah,
unless somebody's taking time off. Like if
possible.
Becky is like, "Hey, me and Seth are gonna try for kid number two," then just have Ripley beat her clean. I don't
Yeah,
know if something like that is going on though.
no, but it's a
So,
possibility because they do.
possibility,
There
yeah.
likes to be the we mentioned it earlier the WrestleMania Irish goodbye, where at WrestleMania people just disappear for months at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Which is not a bad thing either, but sometimes it's
mhm.
very needed. But in terms of who wins at WrestleMania 40, I mean, we're gonna look at Bailey's probably gonna win her match, right? So
Probably.
we got one title change in the women's division. You can move the title belts onto whatever mannequins they're on now next to them or whatever. Like I don't even know who the holders are.
I would probably put my money on Ripley
Yeah.
retaining. I think.
But yeah, if you really want to push Rhea into that next level, because it also
Mhm.
kind of depends what's happening with the Judgment Day too.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to go on there because Ripley is clearly going babyface, but I don't know that Dominic can go babyface. Damian
Yeah,
Priest can go babyface. I don't know if Finn does. So there could be some weirdness that goes on there.
a rift.
A rift in
Yeah.
Judgment Day. Triple H loves drama in his factions.
Oh
What?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, they did. Becky did a great promo leading up to the Rumble or the Elimination Chamber. She did a promo geared towards Ripley where she said a line something along the lines of "I need to prove to myself that I can beat you because
Yeah,
I'm worried that I can't" or something like that. Like it
yeah,
was like her character expressed that she had some doubt over whether she could beat Rhea Ripley, and just with that, she put over Ripley so much, right?
yeah,
Like to make it seem like one of the best women's wrestlers of all time doesn't think that she can beat her. That's how good
yeah,
she is, right? So, but then to have Becky lose after that, like what's her follow up? There's like,
yeah.
well, I thought I couldn't beat her, and I was
Yeah, I
right,
couldn't.
and I learned to trust my instincts and know my limits, and I'm just gonna wrestle on main event from
That's me. Know your limit, Bex.
now. She was big time Bex. Now it was
Now she's halftime
moderately humbled Becky.
Bex. Which would be a fantastic gimmick for like 2-3 weeks.
And she used to be brash and cocky, and now she's moderate,
Quite
agreeable with
reserved.
others. She is pragmatic, I think would be a good
Mhm,
way to describe
mhm,
the
mhm.
man, Becky
The
Lynch.
pragmatic princess, as they
The
call her.
the
Yeah.
the pragmatic man.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's what leads me to believe like one of them's got to be taking time off
Mhm.
because like these are two of the biggest stars of the year women's division. They're both baby faces. So who the hell loses? And I don't think either is going heel. Like
Yeah.